Hello, and welcome to the Revelation Station, where we talk and take action on healing from narcissistic abuse. And today's video is all about being a highly sensitive person. Do you identify as being an empath, as having a lot of empathy? Maybe in the past you've been told that you're too sensitive. In that case, if you identify with that and you've experienced narcissistic abuse, in this video, I'm going to be talking about how this can really feel like a curse, and it can feel like just your life is so difficult when you're highly sensitive. But I'm also going to be talking about how you can really use this to your own advantage to really heal from narcissistic abuse, and how this can really be the secret source of healing from narcissistic abuse. So I'm so excited to share this with you today. And I am live, and I really hope I'm able to get this video out. I've tried a couple of times and my words are just like, not happening. So we'll see how I go. We're going to start with the definition of empathy, and that is from the Oxford Languages Dictionary, which is Google's go-to dictionary. And it's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. So if you're an empath and you have empathy, then you'll probably really identify with that you're able to understand other people's feelings and perhaps even, feel what it is that they might be feeling or they are feeling. And first, let's just look at how this empathy can be a curse before we get into how you can really handle being an empath and how you can work through it and use it as your secret healing source. Okay, so it can feel like a curse because when you are around a narcissistic person, by definition, they don't have empathy. So they're not going to be sensitive to the needs and the feelings of other people. And if they're not sensitive to that, then they can easily hurt other people. So you can find that your feelings are often hurt around someone narcissistic. They can also, because they're not feeling their own feelings, they can project them onto another, and perhaps you end up being in the position of a scapegoat, or they blame and shame you, and just you become like an emotional dumping ground for all of these negative emotions. But even before they get to that, I'll just say, like, have you ever walked into a room where you feel an intuitive sense and a feeling of tension, and you know that there's been an argument or there's some tension in the room, and then you find out later that that is true? And this is a sign that you are an empath and that you're highly sensitive. And so I just want to mention that because this sensitivity to the feelings and the atmosphere and the energy, whatever you want to call it, is something that if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you have that, then it's not only when they're treating you badly that you're soaking up, like they're provoking negative emotions and you're soaking up their negativity when they blame and shame, but also it's kind of like a constant where you are just soaking up the feelings of the room and the feelings of the narcissist. And I've put here the analogy of a dog or a pet because um I don't know where I heard this, but I heard pets being described as like kind of like the emotional vacuums or hoovers of a family, where they will just absorb the negative emotion. And I've heard things anecdotally, and maybe you've had seen evidence of this with pets, where they just have an intuitive sense when somebody is feeling sad or they're feeling some sort of strong emotion, and they will go to that person and comfort them. Maybe you've had a pet that's been that kind of a presence in your life. And the reason I make this an analogy is because, they are the emotional sponges of the environment, but this is really what an empath is as well. And this is why it can feel like a curse, because you are the emotional sponge in an environment, and it doesn't need to be necessarily in the physical environment. If you have this energetic connection with a narcissist, then and you're communicating with them or thinking of them, then you are just kind of channeling into that negative energy, really. And so it can be incredibly draining emotionally and also physically as well. It can just be exhausting, and you can feel like you don't have really the energy to take care of yourself. And you might look at a narcissist, if they've skipped on and they appear to be happy in a new relationship, you're like, hang on a minute, I'm the one feeling all this bad stuff. I'll do a separate video on what's really going on there, but I just want to identify that, and how this feeling, this ability of having empathy can really start to feel like a disability and a curse, and that it's something that we need protection for having. Like, it's something we just have to deal with and manage, and we don't see it in a positive light. And I'll get into, like, protection is great and it is a part of being an empath, but there's more to it than that. So we will be getting into that. Okay, so next I just want to kind of talk about potentially what's really going on here, especially in a relationship with a narcissist. So when they say that you are too sensitive, then I feel like an alternative way of looking at this is that they're just telling you that they are not sensitive enough. They are not sensitive enough to really understand your feelings or emotions, or even really care to try and do that. And when I was looking at some of these definitions, so we've discussed the definition of empathy, but the opposite definition of empathy came up, and that was described as distance. And I found that really interesting because distance here, some of the descriptives are detached, withdrawn, keep at arm's length, and yeah, dissociate, really not wanting to, connect, or, feel what someone else is feeling. And so um with this becomes kind of like a void of emotion and connection. But this I don't want to get too far into another video, but I feel like when we look at empathy as having too, like, being too sensitive, that really doesn't encompass or explain the quality that an empath has. And when you become empowered and accept and use that quality to heal, then things can really turn around. And so, just looking at what's really going on, too many people can really misunderstand what being an empath is. And I found this absolutely fascinating just now when I looked up the definition of an empath. Get ready for this. Again, this is the Oxford Languages Dictionary, which is Google's go-to. So the definition of an empath, it says in brackets, chiefly in science fiction. I don't know where this came from. Um, they go on. A person with the paranormal ability to perceive the mental or emotional state of another individual. And that is fascinating to me because they say chiefly, so primarily in science fiction, and it's a paranormal ability. So I think this really speaks to how this ability is misunderstood, because in this description, which I can only imagine was not written by somebody that has this quality, because they're describing it as paranormal and something that you see in science fiction. Mm, Again, I don't know the origins of this, so maybe they have their reasons, but yeah, it's really enlightening, and I think that really speaks to how we can be so misunderstood. Um, and when I say we, I mean highly sensitive people, by those who don't have sensitivity. It's not even that they're not highly sensitive, they're just not sensitive at all. So yeah, I feel like oftentimes this definition of too sensitive can be the result of being around people that don't have much sensitivity themselves. Um, so I just briefly want to cover an experience that you might relate to if you're highly sensitive. And you probably have many, many experiences yourself of just being out there in the world and functioning in a world that is really dominated by, corporations that often have narcissism at their forefront. And this experience, this was a couple of years ago. I was in a Facebook group. I just moved to a new area. I was in a new community, so I posted in a community group. And I'm not going to go into the details because I don't really think the details matter. I often think what matters is the way people respond and react. It's not the topic of the conversation. It's the way that people communicate within it that can be the issue. And so I asked a question. I'm new to the area. I just want to understand this. And is this correct? What I'm thinking this is. It was a question about like the nature in the area, and I got about 25 responses. And the comments were things like, "You should leave. You should leave this group. You should leave the area. Even I'm not that dumb like to ask such a question." Some of them tagged their friends and other people and said, "She's really paranoid." I'm laughing, but like honestly, um, and yes, it's really interesting that people wanted to tag. They started talking about me as if I wasn't even there, and they were just like talking amongst themselves about um is this, maybe she's joking, maybe she's this, but like not even asking me. It was really bizarre. Anyway, this isn't a community I think I'm going to stay in long term. However, I see this kind of response a lot in Facebook groups, and this is just a kind of example of what's going on in in our wider society. But I also, what's really disturbing is that I see it in narcissistic abuse support groups, where people that don't have as much sensitivity kind of at someone, and yeah, it can be really disturbing as a highly sensitive person to see this kind of thing and to witness people that don't have much consideration for the effects of their words on and their actions on other people. So I just wanted to highlight that if that's, something that you relate to as being a highly sensitive person, and you might find yourself thinking like, how could they say such a thing? How could they be so mean? And I also wanted to, you might even want to explain like, yeah, this isn't how you should be behaving. But yeah, I think I've said before, like, we shouldn't need to explain to adult humans how they should be behaving. Like, we should know at this stage. So, just to answer that question, how could they say such a thing? There's an easy answer. Lack of empathy, that's how, and lack of care, lack of sensitivity on the effects of other people. I've popped a couple of notes there. I'm just going to disregard that for now. So yes, if you identify with all of this, you can really start to feel like you literally can't win in this environment, and this environment is the world. Like, this is the world we're living in. Like, this is just asking a simple question on Facebook. You can start to feel like, I don't even want to ask a simple question on Facebook because I'm going to get attacked. um However, you know you can win, and I'm going to explain how in the next part of this video. Empathy can really feel like a curse, but when you know how to work with it, it is such a wonderful blessing. So, in order to work with your empathy, you can become an educated and an empowered empath. So, number one on becoming an educated empath is really accepting that some people can be mean. I mentioned that in my video. I think it was what I learned from the narcissist, and it's from a book about five givens in the world, like five truths, and one of them is some people can be mean, and just accepting that some people are like that, so that our expectations are not dashed every time we encounter this lack of empathy, really. And also having this kind of education that not everybody understands what it's like to be highly sensitive because they're not highly sensitive. But what comes with not everyone understanding is being misunderstood. And then when we are misunderstood, especially as children, we can grow up and not even understand ourselves and just think, we're cursed, we're highly sensitive, and we're like flawed in some way. And then we won't know how to support ourselves. Um, so the antidote to all of this is once you have this kind of education and you know about blaming and shaming and gaslighting and how that doesn't support you as someone that's highly sensitive, the the really the important thing here is the person that most needs your empathy is you. And I know empathy is described as something, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. However, if you have experienced on multiple occasions people that are not empathizing with you and understanding your empathy, then that is really where you are being called to disconnect from that, to really understand your empathy for yourself. And I actually have a theory that your ability to empathize with yourself is directly correlated to your inner feelings of peace and well-being. It's just a theory, I've not tested it. However, your empathy is a gift, and this gift is a gift that you can choose who to share it with once you have really learned to share that empathy with yourself. And I'm going to get into how to do that. And when you learn how to share your empathy with yourself, then your empathy becomes an advantage. Then your empathy becomes a cure and a a pivotal part of you healing from narcissistic abuse. So, how do you use your empathy on yourself to heal? Obviously, in an ideal world, we would have been taught and we would have been celebrated for having it. So yeah, the fact that we're acknowledging that that hasn't happened. I've got more stuff about the problem here, but let's just get into solutions. So, the secret sauce and the remedy to use your empathy as a superpower is really to use it to understand yourself. Um, when you have empathy and you're not empowered, you can really use your empathy like it should be used outside of yourself, but you can give this gift away to anyone, and often the people that are least deserving of it. And because they don't have empathy, you never get anything in return. So this is really how your empathy can hurt you. I can't help myself. I'm still in education mode. We will get into how to use your empathy um, to heal. Um, but yes, I just want to highlight what I've written here. So when you're not recognized for this, you really learn not only that this isn't a quality, um, but you also learn not to value it because you don't know that having empathy is anything that should be valued. And so when you don't value it or yourself. You just give it away to people who are undeserving of it and who just kind of soak it up like an emotional vampire and don't appreciate you for it and don't acknowledge it. And you can just continue to give your empathy away unconsciously and leave yourself in a weak position. And you can do this and also kind of have this fantasy that the more you give, the more this person will heal and that your love will fix them. And this can really become completely self sacrificing because, yeah, you can just have this expectation that through giving you're going to get, and obviously you don't receive that back from a narcissist, so you end up in a weak position. And this is really a self-abandonment when we focus on the outside and think to ourselves, if I can just understand this person and really help them, then eventually they'll see and appreciate and understand me, and then I'll get safety from that. But actually, the secret source of using your empathy to yourself is not about looking outside and then trying to get safety from making what's going on around you okay. It's making it okay to be yourself. So it's an inside out approach. That's why my coaching package is called Inside Out Healing. Um, so you make it okay to feel your own feelings, and you make it okay to have your own opinions. You make it okay to look after yourself, take responsibility for yourself, take care of yourself. The feelings one here is huge. Um, so a couple of things. You may feel like you need protection because you'd literally just feel like an open sponge. And there is a piece here that is really useful in the having something like to energetically protect yourself, and certain practices you can do to imagine cleansing lights or literally cleanse yourself in water. But this is kind of like it's a kind of like management strategy sometimes. It doesn't deal completely with the root issue at hand. But yeah, a second thing that can really help is the choices that you make. So really bringing your power back and choosing how much do I give to others and who do I give to, and really having those boundaries. And I talk about those boundaries in the live I did last week, the 5 boundaries you need to heal narcissistic abuse. So, how can you use your empathy towards yourself to heal? I'm finally there. First of all, you can turn all of your empathy and your compassion and your understanding that you automatically have. You know, when you walk in a room, you automatically feel and sense all of that. You can turn that superpower onto yourself and focus completely on yourself. Just for a time, bear with me, because a, a deficit is when we focus too much on others. And that's something that's often happening in a relationship with a narcissist. It's just giving, 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 focusing out there. And really, when you can take your empathy and turn it and have compassion with yourself and treat yourself how you would treat the narcissist, really, or how you would treat a best friend. Um, you can literally imagine, like, what would I say to anyone else who was in this position? What would I say to my best friend, or how would I treat them? And then treat yourself that way. So it's really having compassion for what you've been through and what you've been through in order to get to this place where you aren't living in a way that's connected to yourself, and um yes, having compassion for the things that you've experienced and the things that um the things that you've experienced up to this point, where you're having this challenge right now. Oh, that was hard to get out. So that might be past experiences of not being received well when you've spoken up, or being told that you're too sensitive, or just the way that people that aren't sensitive enough have treated you in the past, or all these different hurts that you've then maybe not been supported for because you've just been labeled as too sensitive and then left to just deal with it without any real support. So it's really having compassion for all those times when you've really been emotionally abandoned by someone that doesn't understand how to support you. And so the secret superpower is really learning how to understand and support yourself. And there's a second part of this, of having compassion with yourself, and that is really getting into your body and feeling your feelings. So rather than walking into a room sensing everything that's going on, it's often at the start of this kind of a practice is just being alone and sensing what's going on within and supporting what's going on within. And then after a while, this can be a practice of when you walk into a room, not being completely attuned to what's going on out there. It's maintaining that connection with yourself so that when people do mistreat you, you are in your body and you're able to react rather than, connecting to why are they doing that? Why are they saying that? You are connecting to your own experience and not someone else's experience, which is really where your power is. So, just checking my notes here. Yeah, just it's a feelings is such a big thing here. Just feeling how it is to be you, feeling that and connecting to that rather than connecting to what it's like to be the other person, because empathy is amazing, it is such a gift, but when we're always connecting to the other and we're not connecting to ourselves, then it really hurts us in the long run. You are here to be in your own body and you are here to have your own experience, and your emotions are complex and they just are what they are. Um, I just want to add here the challenge in doing that when you've received messages not to do this because you're too sensitive. So you want to abandon your feelings because they've not been recognized in the past. And so this can just become habitual, and we can have beliefs that we're selfish if we do this, or we shouldn't do this. And just a lot of fears and doubts and worries can come up. And I feel like these two keys, you can really use them together. So having compassion for what you've been through, treating yourself how you would a friend, talking to yourself and supporting yourself how you would a best friend, and also being in your body and feeling those feelings and literally using those two in tandem. Um, it can just be so powerful. So, yeah, those things are going to come up. It's going to feel uncomfortable to start with. It's going to feel weird or wrong or selfish. And so, you really need to remind yourself of why you're doing this, why you want to heal from narcissistic abuse, and remind yourself of these reasons. And also realize that this is healthy and this is a normal way of being. Humans are supposed to be in their bodies. We're supposed to be feeling our emotions and responding to them and living from that internal place rather than everything like looking outside of ourselves all the time and looking for outside fulfillment. It really comes from within first. I really just wanted to share a quick story from a friend of mine who identifies as being highly sensitive. And she was working as a disability support worker. And I find this so impressive because I just feel like I couldn't do that, but I really admire people that do have that job, nurses as well. And I was asking her about her empathy, and I think I said something like, "Oh, like you it must is it draining? Like you must have." A lot of empathy to be in that position and help people all the time. And she said, "Yeah, it is draining, and it can be draining. And the thing is with my empathy is that yes, I do have empathy, but my empathy comes with conditions, and there's certain things that need to be met before I will extend my empathy to someone." And I just thought that was amazing. And if we were all taught that, um, yes, we need to we need to be taught to have empathy, but we also need to be taught how to deal with our empathy when we have a lot of it. And yeah, I just thought that was fantastic. Take from that what you will. But I encourage you to consider, what would the conditions be for you in order for you to extend your gifts and your empathy to someone else. And so when you really accept your empathy and that you have it and you're highly sensitive and you apply all of that to yourself, because right now, if you've experienced narcissistic abuse and you're healing, you are the person that needs your empathy the most, not anybody else. You are being called to extend that empathy towards yourself and really being called to step into the power and become an empowered empath. That's where your control really lies. It's not in trying to fix or change or heal other people. It's in trying to really apply that to yourself. Um, so this is the permission to do that if you needed permission, and it's really about giving yourself the permission to apply it to yourself and just see it as a practice and notice the things that come up when you do that, the beliefs that you're not supposed to and all of that, and just accept that that is also part of that journey. I'm just checking my notes here. I think as a result of doing this, when I started the video and I talked about empathy, is it a curse or a cure? We can really, as a result of this, start to celebrate empathy and being highly sensitive and the amazing quality that is, and using that gift on ourselves. And then once we've done that and we've filled up our own cup, we then get to pick and choose, who do we extend our love and our care and support to? Who deserves our empathy? And this is where our empathy can become redirected. And on a personal, individual level, this is completely transforming for your life, but also on a collective level, globally, this is absolutely transformational as well. Like, just imagine the world where empathy is being extended to the people that are deserving and appreciative of that empathy. That's not to say that, you know, people aren't deserving of it, but when they use it and they consume it and they don't appreciate or give any of it back, and then you're just given to a bottomless pit, then we all know how that story ends, and it is not good. So just going back to the Facebook group post, after reading that and reflecting, I just thought to myself, I am so glad that I have empathy, and I have this, paranormal gift of being an empath, because I wouldn't ever write anything like that in a Facebook group, and if I have, I'm really sorry. um, but yeah, just you can see it from a perspective of, like, to not have that empathy, you are really hurting people, and when we hurt people, we are hurting ourselves as well. It doesn't feel good when you hurt others, and hurt people hurt other people. But when you become empowered in your own empathy and those gifts, then you can use that to help people, and then those people can go on to help other people, and we can start this cycle of the empowered empath, which I think the world really needs right now. So a quick recap: it can feel like a curse, and I've spoken about how, and hopefully validated that, but also I've spoken about how your empathy can be a cure, by really accepting it, accepting people have a lack of empathy, accepting that you might have an abundance of it, and starting to give that gift to yourself, and really feeling and supporting and validating your feelings, and then choosing who you share this gift with, and knowing that this is a process and it doesn't happen overnight, but just imagine how your life can change when you step into this practice. And I'm really excited to hear about how this changes things for you. And if you do want any more support on how to do this, because this is something I work with people in within hypnotherapy and coaching sessions on, then do check out my services at revelationtherapy.com. And I want to thank you so much for staying with me to the end of this video. I feel like I'm not quite there with my words and explaining, so hopefully I've done this topic enough justice and it's been helpful enough and good enough for you to take some benefit from this. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care, and sending you so many positivities for you and your healing journey.